Welcome to Lawyers Who Lead. I'm your host, Sigal Barnes. I'm excited to share that Lawyers Who Lead was on the road last week. I was podcasting in person at NALP's 2022 Professional Development Institute in Washington, D.C. For any listeners who aren't familiar, NALP is an association of over 2,500 legal professionals in North America and beyond. And the Professional Development Institute is an annual conference for anyone involved in lawyer training and professional development. So instead of hearing one episode for this week, you'll be listening in on a bunch of short interviews that I had with leaders from the conference who are responsible for law firm strategic planning, recruiting and talent, and overall professional development of the legal industry. Next week, we'll be going back to our original episode programming, but in the meantime, enjoy these episodes. And if you were at the conference or you have any questions about the insights that you hear, please feel free to reach out to me. Let's get to it.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Lawyers Who Lead, a podcast that challenges the notion that the law lags behind. I'm your host, Sigal Barnes. Each week, I invite a lawyer who's making powerful changes through extraordinary leadership. In each episode, we'll travel through another lawyer's life, identify what they do best, and then devise how to apply these concepts to your own world. So let's get to it. We have here with us Adam Stein, Senior Product Advisor at Litera, where he works on Micron Systems, a talent management system specifically designed for law firms. Although not a lawyer, Adam has been working in talent management tech for over 25 years and is a subject matter expert. So let's get right into the interview recorded live at PDI coming up right now. We're here with Adam. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sigal.
For all of our listeners out there, Adam is a fellow New Jerseyan. Is that what we say?
Yes.
So it's really cool to not only see him in New Jersey when we hang out, but also now to be in Washington, D.C. together.
That's right.
And we'll probably be having dinner tonight at the Micron event.
Exactly.
Or Litera event, should I say.
Litera and Micron together, yes.
Absolutely. So, Adam, can you tell me a little bit about how you got to your role today?
So I've been with Micron for a long time, 25 years. And I've always been working with the products, which many people know CE Manager for CLE tracking and learning management. And that's where I cut my teeth on a long time ago. And then what's happened over a course of 2 decades is the software became very popular. Talent management became very popular. So ultimately, CE Manager, which started at Logicat, paired up with LawCrew, which was Micron. And that journey kept going, and I kept with it all these years, and helping people and law firms just really get into how are we recruiting people, how are we training them. And then as talent management kept becoming a thing, we put together Top Performance, which is performance reviews. So all of these things led into Micron being very successful in the talent space. And then just over this past summer, Litera acquired us. They wanted to get into the talent management space. And so I've followed that journey the whole way. For me personally, I've been on the technology side of things early on and then got into sales and marketing. I do our product presentations, which I like very much because it's all about really working with people to understand what can they do with our software to solve their challenges at their firms. So
I was going to ask you, why do you do what you do, why it's important, but I think you just answered it.
I do what I do because it's always inspiring. In fact, I really like this conference that we're at because here you find people that are looking to understand how do I keep inspiring people at my firm with whether it's training. There's a lot of performance talk here as well. And because CE Manager and Top Performance do that so well together, that's where I get inspiration from as well. So it's about talking to the people that are here doing that, going to the plenaries or the different speaking engagements and seeing those things go on.
What does it mean to tie performance to talent management, and how does that go into, let's say, retention of employees?
Sure. So when you're working with an attorney in a specific role, whether it's a corporate junior, a senior litigator, a lot of firms have really focused on a core competency or a framework, a matrix. How do we want this person to grow in the role and be good at their role? So training, of course, but in a specific area of their role, whether it's their practice area, their leadership level, so to speak. And then as they're trained, well, is it working? So we have to measure it somehow. And so performance reviews come into place. And in particular, Top Performance and CE Manager do that well because as, let's say, a partner is reviewing an associate, they can see, well, what have they been training on? Where can we embellish skills that they're doing well? And where can we help improvements?
I think you hit on something really important, which is that you can train all you want, but there needs to be a measurement of whether that training is effective so that you can continue to help people grow in the areas that they're potentially struggling with, but also help advance them in the places that they're excelling in as well at the same time. And it seems like you have a product that really helps empower law firms to do that for their lawyers.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
You talked a little bit about this, but why is coming to NALP PDI so important for Litera and Micron?
Because of the thoughts that are brought together in this same room. I think there's around 400 people here, and everyone is connecting at those levels of, again, what are we teaching our lawyers? What are we doing with our firm and the direction of it? It's an institution of people that all work on these types of things. I've just been connecting this morning with people I haven't seen in a while, and everybody's eyes are lighting up because everyone's happy to be out and seeing this information before them. So just PDIs, people like coming together and like, oh, this is great. Let's talk about these things and then let's take them back to our firms and do something with them.
I agree. I mean, there is an energy here that, and everyone is so excited to be here. And I've seen people that have been in the industry for a very long time. And then I've actually spoken to people that are new to the industry. And there is just that same level of excitement and yearning to learn here that I think is, it's very hard to replicate. I haven't seen it in many other conferences.
Definitely.
So I know it's still early on in the conference, but I'd love to get your take on what are some of the biggest insights that you've gotten so far?
A couple things came up last night as I was coming into the show and meeting people. Wellness has been a topic of conversation. I think in general, our culture's headed towards people having good wellness and understanding what that is for themselves and understanding the tools that they can have around them. So I've heard that a lot, and it's almost in conjunction with something else, which is, I would just say, connecting. Like, again, that energy you described, not only personally, but professionally, where people are connecting and collaborating. I mean, it's not like no one's ever been to a conference before. We all have. There just seems to be a level of interest in meeting colleagues, and then instantly collaborating on a common ground.
Yes.
And that's been nice to see.
And I love going to conferences like these because you have all of these different people from all of these different law firms, also law schools. And I find it so fascinating because in some ways they are competitors. Certain law firms are competing for the same clientele. But in this space, everyone is kind of moving together to kind of help create solutions for giving attorneys the best experience that they can have to both level up professionally, but also have satisfaction in their lives at the same time. And I always just find that so fascinating when you can have a shared interest like that among a group of people that sometimes compete against each other.
That's absolutely right. And, competition is, of course, good because it makes people better. What's unique about this group also is that they've worked at a law firm for a long time, but then they go to the next law firm and the next law firm in a good way, meaning that they maybe 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years at a certain place, but then they bring all that knowledge to the next place. And then it circles around again. But, that law firm may operate differently.
Right.
So they have an opportunity to bring their tools that they had learned and then use them in a different way. I could relate it back to myself because I've been with Micron for 25 years, and being acquired into Litera has been a journey for myself, which has been really interesting in terms of connecting and collaborating. So Micron was 70 people, and now Litera is 1,000. And what I've found that's exciting, in the same way that I find PDI exciting, is that you can reach out to people who are very skilled in this industry, very knowledgeable. They have a lot to offer and are interested in connecting for that greater good of collaboration and, how you said before, level up. So whether it's people that are here at this conference at law firms or on my side, the vendor side, working, to understand what are the business needs out there. How do we collaborate together with our clients and make new things and make really good things?
And it really goes back to what you were saying earlier about connection, right?
Yes.
The connection and collaboration that really creates the opportunity to advance the whole industry forward when a whole bunch of people like this come together.
Yeah.
Adam, one last question before we end. Based on 25 years of experience working in the legal industry, working with lawyers, working with law firms, what would you say leadership in law means to you?
Leadership in law, how it connects to me is people interested in, well, what do we do next? They're not sitting in one place. They want to move to what's next. I've been working with professional development directors for a long time who are actually now chief talent officers. So they've grown themselves, and that's leadership. If you can grow yourself and then you can grow the people around you, that's excellent.
I love that. And so what I hear you saying is, to you, leadership in law is empowering growth.
100%, yes, and that's key.
I think that's a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much, Adam, for being on the show. If someone wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way they can do that?
They can definitely find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, leaders and future leaders, for listening today. We have a new guest every week, so don't forget to join us next week. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe or follow us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also follow @Lawyers Who Lead on social. Let's celebrate and continue to build a community of leaders in law together. Lawyers Who Lead is made possible by Lawline, the leading online platform for lawyers who want engaging, relevant CLE and professional growth content. For over 20 years, Lawline has helped hundreds of thousands of attorneys level up by providing award-winning courses in hard-to-find areas and high-demand fields. They have so many courses to choose from that are actually really interesting to listen to and watch. That's why Lawline's rated the highest in the industry with over 1,000 verified reviews on Trustpilot. Lawyers Who Lead listeners get $100 off Lawline's unlimited annual subscription, which means you can take as many courses as you want for a really good price. Just visit lawline.com/podcast to get the special offer. Check out Lawline for the best content for leaders and future leaders in legal. Welcome to Lawyers Who Lead. I'm your host, Sigal Barnes. As a reminder to all of our listeners, this week is a bunch of fantastic short-form interviews that I had live with leaders from NALP's PDI conference in Washington, D.C. We will be returning back to our original episode programming starting next week, but please enjoy these episodes. There's tons of great insights. So, without further ado, let's get back to our next guest.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Lawyers Who Lead, a podcast that challenges the notion that the law lags behind. I'm your host, Sigal Barnes. Each week, I invite a lawyer who's making powerful changes through extraordinary leadership. In each episode, we'll travel through another lawyer's life, identify what they do best, and then devise how to apply these concepts to your own world. So let's get to it. We have here with us John Kropp, founder of Mindfulness for Lawyers, who's led mindfulness and well-being programs at Harvard, Stanford, Yale, the Pentagon, public defenders' offices, Fortune 100 companies, and more than 70 top law firms. Since 2006, John has studied with teachers from around the world, including psychologists, neuroscientists, and traditional Buddhist masters. He even completed a 7-month silent meditation retreat in 2014. John is actually both attending and speaking here at the conference today, and I'm very excited for you to meet our next Lawyer Who Leads. So let's get right into the interview recorded live at PDI right now. All right, we're here with John Kropp. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I was flattered to be asked.
Well, I'm really excited to get into what you do for our listeners. What brought you to founding Mindfulness for Lawyers?
Well, I got into mindfulness initially in law school, and the reason was that I was just mega stressed in law school, which was not an uncommon reaction to law school. I also have ADHD, and so I was at a pretty competitive law school, competitive environment, and I felt like I was having trouble keeping my head above water. Everyone was so organized and disciplined. I didn't feel like I was those things. So I got into mindfulness initially because I'd heard, learn to meditate, it helps you focus, helps with stress and anxiety. So that was the initial interest. And then once I got into it and started exploring it, I saw how much deeper it went than that and started to take it pretty seriously. Did a lot of studying, did a series of increasingly long silent meditation retreats. And then so fast forward to 2014, I graduated from law school in 2008. Fast forward to 2014, I go on a 7-month silent meditation retreat. And then when I came back, I had a law school roommate who was at a big firm and who was struggling, and he saw on Facebook that I was back and reached out to me asking if I could share some of the stuff that I had learned. And so we hopped on Skype. It was not Zoom yet, and I shared some stuff, and he encouraged me to consider teaching this stuff more broadly in the legal profession. So I started doing it really just on the side while I was still full-time at my firm, but it was well received and it grew organically. And after about a year and a half of that, I sort of ran out of vacation days to use to do that. And so I just switched to doing it full time. That was 6 years ago now.
It's an incredible story. Can you just give me like one thing that you learned? I'm sure you learned many things, but one thing you learned from that silent retreat, that silent meditation retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say here's one big thing. Thoughts are overrated. I feel like 95% of our thoughts serve no purpose except to clutter our minds. I am not anti-thinking, right? In the legal field, of course, we need to analyze, we need to problem solve, right? As people, too. But we think compulsively, and our minds are just crammed with dumb little thoughts that don't really do anything except stress us out, distract us, keep us from just sort of quietly enjoying our own existence.
Yes. That's a great takeaway. It's not anti-thinking, but it is being more mindful about your thought process and how it's affecting you and whether it serves you.
Yeah, it's not only not anti-thinking, it is pro-skillful thinking, right? If you actually calm all that clutter, the more insightful thoughts, the more useful thoughts, the more productive thoughts, those rise up, right? And those become clearer, more accessible. There's not this background hum of all this nonsense drowning them out.
So why did you come to NALP's PDI conference specifically to speak on this matter?
Oh, I love PDI. I owe this career, this like groovy career that I have now to PDI. I've just met my whole quote unquote network in the law firm attorney development space comes in large part from coming to this conference. You know, everyone's so gracious and warm. I was talking with Jay and Megan from NALP last night. They were sort of busting my chops a little bit about the first time I came to PDI in 2016, where apparently I was very twitchy, very nervous, sort of running around saying, I need to meet this person, I need to meet that person, where do you meet with people? And seeming very stiff and nervous. And of course, everyone was really lovely and welcoming. And so, I don't know, maybe it's lame or weird to say that I really look forward to a corporate conference. But honestly, I really do. Everyone's so nice.
I don't think it's lame at all. I feel the same exact way about this conference. I also still a little bit get nervous, I think. But in general, everyone is so warm and gracious. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an introvert. And I also sometimes get a little bit of social anxiety. So having to sort of come, it is sort of a networking thing.
Right.
But just the character of the people here, by and large, makes it very easy to feel like you're just sort of hanging out with friendly people. You're not here hustling up business. You know, the sort of businessy stuff happens organically as a result of just being nice to nice people.
Yeah.
And having some fun interactions with cool people here. So that's the vibe at PDI, I think.
I agree. And I think also because everyone that comes here works with and thinks deeply about the professional development of people.
Yeah.
That really kind of lends to that great feeling that you have, because people are really people-centric here.
Yeah, there's a self-selection for sure. It's a lot of people who thought it would be fun to spend their workday helping people, essentially.
Right, exactly. So another question for you. You're also speaking at a session at this conference.
Yes.
Can you just touch upon what you'll be speaking about?
Yes, so my talk is called Pack 'em In, How to Maximize Attendance at Your Learning and Development Programs. And so I'm doing this with a few colleagues who are PD directors at big firms, Paula Dixon at Greenberg Traurig, Matt Galando at K&L Gates, and Nakia Humphrey at Gunderson Detmer. All GOAT-level PD leaders. I'm happy to sort of ride their coattails with this program. They're great. So the basic idea here is that it is incredibly frustrating to put together an amazing program and then crickets in the room or the Zoom room.
Right.
Right? It's a completely different discipline. There's the discipline or the craft of putting together amazing programming, and then there's the craft of driving attendance, right? Getting people to show up, and also closing the gap between the people who RSVP and then the people who actually show up. Because there's always that cliff, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, I have been fortunate in that I've worked with a bunch of firms at this point and other organizations. I've had the opportunity to experiment, iterate, and figure out which strategies, methods, tactics, tips, hacks actually work to get people to show up. And I share those with my clients. I sort of help them with that stuff, right? I provide some materials, I provide some best practices, I share some thoughts, because I consider that part of my job, to make sure that not only the program is good, but that people are there. But for folks who don't have me in the room with them to help with that, and who aren't Paula Dixon or Matt Galando or Nakia Humphrey, we wanted to open the playbook and share the strategies that have worked.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the session. It's going to be fantastic.
Are you going to come?
Of course I'm going to come.
I should note that we are walking the walk, so we are aggressively working to make sure that people show up. It'd be pretty embarrassing if we did a program on boosting attendance and no one was in the room,
There's
right?
a lot of pressure there, actually. You're absolutely right.
A lot of pressure, which is why we brought out the big guns. We're going to be offering free kettle corn and a bunch of different fun flavors for anyone who shows up. Get a little bag of kettle corn, actually a sizable bag of kettle corn. I'm also raffling off a free workshop with me for an organization.
Amazing.
So, one of my clients once said that I am on, to quote her, the high side of reasonable. So it's a decent get,
I mean, you got me a kettle corn, so I will 100% be there.
Okay, excellent.
And last question for you, actually 2 more questions. What is the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from PDI so far?
The biggest takeaway from PDI for someone like me, I would say, is don't try and sell yourself. Just be here to make friends and hang out.
I love it. And last one, since you've been in the legal industry for so long, you've been very deeply connected with the legal industry, with various players in the legal industry.
Yeah.
What would you say leadership in law means to you?
Well, I certainly think it does not mean your role or your seniority or your level of experience or where you are on the org chart. I think a leader is someone who uplifts the people around them, who brings out the best in the people around them. And I think that's something that can be done no matter what your role is, attorney, non-attorney, C-suite executive, you've been there less than 6 months. Everyone has the capacity to lead in the sense of, helping the people around them be their best selves, do their best work, feel good about themselves. That's what I think a leader is.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, John, for being on the show. If anyone wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Oh, just go to my website. It's pretty easy to remember. It's mindfulnessforlawyers.com. I did not get creative with the naming, but I think it says what you need to know. Mindfulnessforlawyers.com. There's a contact me thingy up in the right-hand corner. Use it liberally. I love hearing from people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John, for being on the show.
Thanks, Sigal.
Take care.
Thank you, leaders and future leaders, for listening today. We have a new guest every week, so don't forget to join us next week. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe or follow us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also follow @LawyersWhoLead on social. Let's celebrate and continue to build a community of leaders in law together. Lawyers Who Lead is made possible by Lawline, the leading online platform for lawyers who want engaging, relevant CLE and professional growth content. For over 20 years, Lawline has helped hundreds of thousands of attorneys level up by providing award-winning courses in hard-to-find areas and high-demand fields. They have so many courses to choose from that are actually really interesting to listen to and watch. That's why Lawline's rated the highest in the industry with over 1,000 verified reviews on Trustpilot. Lawyers Who Lead listeners get $100 off Lawline's unlimited annual subscription, which means you can take as many courses as you want for a really good price. Just visit lawline.com/podcast to get the special offer. Check out Lawline for the best content for leaders and future leaders in legal.
Do not get lost in the business of law. Let others worry about that. It can be easy to think about growing your legal practice and looking at the bottom line numbers and seeing the dollars involved. That will happen organically if you pursue continued progress as a legal professional. So don't neglect the time to do the work. And I see a lot of young lawyers coming up and they're just ready to build their book of business, but there's no way around getting experience. It's very hard to skip that process. And your experience is what determines a major aspect of the quality of the advice you serve your clients with.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Lawyers Who Lead, a podcast that challenges the notion that the law lags behind. I'm your host, Sigal Barnes. Each week, I invite a lawyer who's making powerful changes through extraordinary leadership. In each episode, we'll travel through another lawyer's life, identify what they do best, and then devise how to apply these concepts to your own world. So let's get to it. Welcome to Lawyers Who Lead. I'm your host, Sigal Barnes. Our guest today is dedicated to developing innovative methods to improve the practice of law. He leads the IP practice group at Founders Legal, a tech-forward firm that provides integrative legal services to clients of all sizes and stages of development. He also serves as an advisor to the Atlantic Tech Village, where he helps a community of 120 startup companies. Please welcome our next lawyer who leads, Yuri Eliezer. Yuri, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So before I start, I always like to ask every single guest just for a little slice of life and a little bit of gratitude. So what is your favorite moment so far today?
My favorite moment actually occurred over the past few days. I had some family in town. We went kayaking yesterday with my son, and it was a good time. We managed to see some beautiful nature, peace, tranquility, and to be together with family and close friends. So very grateful for that moment.
Where did you go?
It's along the Chattahoochee River, and there's a dam that helps generate electricity for our community. It's nice and peaceful. And we were paddling upstream in the kayak, which gave it a little bit of good exercise. So enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And a little teamwork too, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's amazing. What a wonderful time. I'm so glad you got to spend time with your family. I wanted to ask you, did you always want to be a lawyer?
Well, I can't imagine always having wanted to be a lawyer, but in most of my teenage adult years, I think that was always the main focus for me. And so I decided to try that career out. And honestly, it was the only professional job I've had since high school. Started interning since high school. I worked my way through Georgia Tech, earning a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And I worked full-time, went to night school to study law, writing patents, practicing as a registered patent agent, before that a technical advisor, and finally a patent lawyer. So it's been a pretty focused career track for me. And so I've been able to gain a lot of years of experience, even as a younger professional, attract the right talent and the right clients to continue advancing my career as an attorney. So I've been very fortunate.
So what specifically about patents piqued your interest so early on?
Well, innovation, discovery, advancement of technology, it all really appealed to me. And I don't think I was ever really good enough at actually coming up with the innovation, but working alongside those who did, I found to be compelling as a career choice. So I took that route.
How did you even know that it was patents specifically that you wanted to do? Like, was there a conversation?
Actually, it was Ideas and Opinions by Albert Einstein. And it was just a various compilation of different letters he's written. And snippet in the bio section mentioned that he was a patent clerk at the Swiss Patent Office. I think it was actually when he developed some of his interesting theories. So I thought, let me give that a shot. So I did. And I was very grateful that I read that book at that time. And that's some of the career advice I get younger people, is that follow what your role model's path. Because if they're really a role model, then why reinvent the wheel? So go for it the way they did.
So when you decided, okay, like I'm going to move forward with this, you said you were in high school and then eventually you became a patent administrator?
Yeah, so to practice patent law, you're required to take a bar exam administered by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And you can sit for that bar exam upon the successful completion of a technical degree, which my engineering degree qualified. And then you're registered to represent inventors and applicants before the USPTO, much like a patent lawyer would. So patent lawyers and patent agents often have a lot of overlap. And being a patent attorney, you have more of a judicial perspective on how patents are litigated, how patents are enforced, and what arguments might work, what arguments might not work, because you're trained in reading legal opinions. Honestly, outside of that, patent agent has a lot of competencies in handling patent prosecution, which is representing applicants before the United States Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this because when I was also before law school, I actually worked full time for Siemens Corporation. And so I worked in their patent law department and I learned a lot about that. What I didn't know was that you can actually sit for the patent exam before you become a lawyer and become a patent agent. I had no idea that that was a thing. So that's really interesting that you did that first, really understood what that entailed, and then that helped you better understand, okay, I want to take the next step and become a lawyer as well.
That's right.
So then you told me that you ended up going to law school at night while you were working full time as a patent agent.
It's not uncommon for actually patent attorneys because oftentimes patent attorneys come from technical backgrounds where they've already had a profession and career, like the EB program at Georgia State University. It's one of the higher rated programs in the United States, very popular and fast growing school. I liked it because you're shoulder to shoulder with also other individuals who are mid career, whereas the full time law students, oftentimes they haven't had a chance to yet develop and grow their career. They're going straight from undergraduate studies to law school full time. So you get a very interesting diversity of classmates in the part-time program at night. We called ourselves the night walkers
I love that. The night walkers.
because during the day we had, a full-time job and you take a little break, maybe go to the gym, get some food, and then you're in class till 9, 10 o'clock in the evening.
That sounds challenging. I mean, where do you get the time to study for exams and to write your papers?
And it takes a little bit longer too. Taking summer classes, it takes a full year longer to get done. But then when you're out, of course, you're like, wow, I've got all this free time.
Yeah, makes you so grateful for that.
And you've got a job lined up because you've already been working. You're much more a hireable candidate at that point.
So you graduate from law school. You're a patent attorney with a lot of experience under your belt. Did you have a plan in mind? Did you want to go into a firm? Did you want to start your own firm? What was your plan?
Well, the plan started with the passage of the America Invents Act. The America Invents Act changed our patent system in a fundamental way. We were one of the few countries in the world that maintained the first to invent patent standard, which means the applicant must prove that they were the first to invent their innovation. And if the patent examiner found evidence that their invention, let's say 6 months before they filed for patent on it, someone already published a similar invention, the applicant was permitted to submit evidence with a date, signature, an affidavit to show that in fact, their conception predated the earlier publication that the patent examiner might have found, and that they worked with a good amount of diligence to reduce their conception to practice. And if they can prove that, they could backdate prior art the examiner cites during patent prosecution. Well, that is known as the first to invent standard. The international standard across most of the countries in the world was first to file. Meaning, we're not going to trust any extrinsic evidence submitted during the patent prosecution process. Let's just treat the filing date as the priority right for the applicant without relying on any affidavits. And that created a race to the patent office that earlier stage companies were, I would say, a little more at the disadvantage against bigger companies. They were perhaps not as equipped to prepare to file patents so early on. And so that created a demand, all those emerging technology companies who now needed to file a patent sooner than ever before. And so that's when I started planning, because I was at a very big and prestigious firm that served, the top 1% of patent filers. And what I mean by the top 1% of filers probably file 33% of all the patents, right? If not more. So I decided to begin to pivot into that technology entrepreneur client. They were the ones who needed the most help. They're the ones who were, I would say, substantially disadvantaged by the new laws. So they needed representation. And for them to work with a big firm that represents the bigger clients, there would be a conflict of interest issue. Then a big firm might not want to take a small client doing that nice advanced technology because they might have a big client come with the same technology and they can't represent both. So that and a few other reasons made it more difficult to represent earlier stage companies in a firm that represents large multinational patent filers.
And also financial barriers, right? Like someone that's perhaps a smaller entrepreneur probably couldn't afford the fees.
Well, it's important to understand why they might not have afforded it. It's because when you work with a firm that's equipped to serve large patent filers, they do benefit from economies of scale. Whereas if you only have 1 or 2 applications to file, you don't necessarily need to pay for those economies of scale.
Got it. So you actually graduated, went to a large firm, and then decided based on this new standard that was created that you were going to go out and you were going to start to help other people that were disadvantaged by this new law.
That's right. That still rings true today. Although a lot of our clients have matured and become multinational corporations themselves over the past decade, I'd say there's still a strong need for smaller entities to be able to adequately procure and enforce their patent rights in the current patent system. And believe me, it's something that the entire community of patent professionals is fighting to make sure that the courts come out with the right rulings, to make sure that Congress passes the right legislation, to make sure that the delicate balance of leveling the playing field, which is in part what the patent system is designed to do, remains true to its purpose.
On that note, actually, I read that you were one of the very few attorneys that's been invited by the USPTO to provide technical training and industry insights at the Patent Examiner Technical Training Program. Is that like where you were sharing some of those insights?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Through the work we do for our clients, we were invited to discuss scenarios in which earlier stage companies might find it difficult to enforce patent rights. And so it was very important for patent examiners to hear the consequences of their examination process. One problem with the patent system is a human problem. Even the best, most competent examiners, they miss certain prior art disclosures that would have perhaps invalidated the patents that they would otherwise granted. In other words, sometimes patent applicants are awarded patents even though they're not the first to come up with the invention. And that reduces patent quality. Again, it's not a competency issue. It's just a human issue. Imagine all the world of prior art. I say often, an article in Korea written in Korean that discloses some aspect of the invention that a patent applicant submitted to the USPTO is still relevant prior art. How can we expect our patent examiners to find that? But you better believe that during patent enforcement, if you're going up against a player who really intends to, let's say, keep their technology and keep infringing on your patent rights, they're going to go ahead and find everything they can and submit it for re-examination, for review of your patent, which adds to the cost. And oftentimes patent applicants, they find themselves, my goodness, now I have to pay to re-examine my patent and I hope that I get a favorable ruling. So I was grateful for the opportunity to share with patent examiners those downstream consequences of the work they do on earlier stage applicants.
It's super important to see the whole picture, right? Not just the piece in which you're playing in, and really understand how your piece affects everything moving forward. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you were able to do that at the USPTO.
I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
Talk to me about Founders Legal. How did it start? Why did you start it? And tell me a little bit about what differentiates you from other types of firms.
Well, I am a co-founder of Founders Legal. Me and my co-founders met at the Atlanta Tech Village working on our legal tech startup company, which we all left the big firm and decided to try some legal technology that we can put in the consumer's hands to provide a greater, more efficient access to justice, to help people secure their legal rights in the best way technology can allow for efficiencies and quality purposes. So we were working on technology. We didn't want to actually go back to practicing law, but we found that during the process of being submersed in the Atlanta Tech community, people would come in these for patents and trademarks. And one of my co-founders, Jeffrey DeCaris, they were going to him for corporate work and securities work and fundraising work. And he said, look, this is still what's paying the bills. Our legal tech companies, they're not really making much money. Why don't we merge and actually formalize the legal work we've been doing on the side anyway? And that's how Founders Legal came to be. And we decided to name Founders because we were founders ourselves. We were lawyers that were founders, and we stayed true to that. And a lot of the attorneys that had joined had a different professional career before becoming lawyers. They had entrepreneurial and type backgrounds. And so the brand we'd established is that we're founders, we're practical, we've done it all. And in our firm, we've got corporate, securities, M&A, international and domestic intellectual property from trademarks to patents. And so we provide a well-rounded list of offerings that bring value to other executives and founders of technology companies.
Talk to me about Atlantic Tech Village, where you're helping over 120 startup companies.
Yeah, sure. As a result of us being tech entrepreneurs, we became the first and only law firm permitted in incubators up and down the East Coast. While big name firm brands sponsor these accelerators and incubators financially, we actually worked with their companies because we were one of them. And that really helped us get the traction to establish our firm at a foundational level. Because we were tech entrepreneurs, we were able to access these other tech entrepreneurs and provide them legal services. We trusted each other. We had mutual respect for each other.
What does it look like to be an advisor there?
You've got to put the business aside and you have to focus on helping your community. Ultimately, it's the greatest use, I think, of non-productive, non-billable time is to put your strengths as a lawyer, serve your target audience in a way that others can only do in a business setting. So that's number one. Number two is being an entrepreneur. You don't just focus on their specific areas. I'm talking to a CEO. Now they've got employees, they've got sales, they've got contractors, they've got partnership agreements, and all of those are going to want a piece of the IP. Let me advise this entrepreneur on what they should expect, not just about patents, but about everything around the process, and make sure that the few dollars they have to spend don't go towards IP if they don't absolutely have a strong reason to do so. So you're able to take it down to that level, I would say.
I think I'm seeing a theme here, which is that even in your advising of clients or other people in the community, again, just like you did with the USPTO, you're taking a step back and you're looking at the larger picture. Like you said, I don't look at just the focus through the lens of a patent, but I look at everything that's going on around this entrepreneur's life.
That's right. That's something that all of our attorneys at Otters Legal strive to be, is truly trusted advisors, not just within the scope of our specific competency or niche competency, you may say, but also just a well-rounded perspective that we'd like to hear about their challenges, because we have a team that is greater than the sum of its parts. And that's what trusted advisors provide, isn't just their specific competency, but a much greater access to more knowledge and experience.
So I want to dig there a little bit. Let's say that you're talking to a junior associate or a new associate that's coming to your firm and they're saying, Yuri, I get that you look at the big picture. I get that you're looking at all of these different aspects. What advice do you give to this person on how they can implement that themselves? What are some of the things that you're doing practically that you could pass on?
If you're going to a networking event, you better be going because you're genuinely passionate about the subject matter, that you see yourself as a peer, a genuine academic, or any kind of hobby curiosity. You're going because it's something that truly, genuinely interests you. If you wouldn't make $1 of business out of this event, go there because you want to learn and you want to be surrounded by the people you like to be around. So I try to remain focused on business development through that lens and network building through that lens. That really helps to build a trusted advisor relationship.
But when you go to, let's say, an event like this, what are some ways in which you foster relationships with people that you meet?
Know your audience. Every circle is going to have a different approach. For me, I ask myself, could I invite this person over to my house for drinks, have a good time, and develop a friendship?
So you said something earlier about it's so important to help your community. Why is it so important to you to help your community? And where do you think that comes from?
I guess I could take it a little bit philosophical route. One thing I hear about folks in an older community when they've already perhaps outlived their spouse and they have grandchildren and great grandchildren is that being alone is very difficult. Being on your own, not having someone to share experiences with is, from what I've heard, one of the most difficult things to endure, loneliness. And being part of a community is truly a blessing. It's a gift. And being integrated in a community adds to the beautiful colors of life, and give to your community to add to the color that others experience in their life as well. And overall, it's a beautiful way of living.
I like that you took it philosophical. I like this imagery that you used of just it provides more to the colors of life and that you can contribute to others. I love that. So beautiful. Maybe you've gone into the wrong profession. Maybe you should be a philosopher or a writer.
Oh, everyone does that.
I don't know if that's true. You think everyone does that? I think you put it really beautifully. I don't know that everyone can do that.
Well, see, I must invite you for a couple of drinks to my house then.
There we go. See, yes, I got the invite. What does leadership in law mean to you?
First is to always continue your education, contribute your perspective as a thought leader if you can, or at least read the perspective of other thought leaders. Stay at the advanced cutting edge of your industry. I guess first prong of leadership. The second would be to work with a team with a very good set of core values and principles that you align with, that fits with your culture, because you can't go as far on your own as you can with a great team of people. The third is to provide the best and the greatest access to legal justice that you can to your community, to your jurisdiction, where you're licensed. What you're doing should bring value to your clients, and you should be the leader at bringing value to your clients. And you should strive to scale that, to amplify that. If you're doing good, if you find some good value, increase the scalability of that value proposition so you can provide the greatest access to justice as possible.
So continue learning, establish core values with a great team that will align with those values, and continue to ensure that you're providing the highest quality of access of justice to your community.
Yes, exactly.
If there was one thing you could change about the legal industry, what would it be?
I'd like for the enforcement of intellectual property rights to be accessible to everybody who has intellectual property rights. Right now in our country, you can get intellectual property rights, but you have to achieve certain economies of scale for enforceability to make sense. On one hand, I think that's a good thing. I think that limited monopolies, which is what intellectual property rights provide, could be very detrimental to society as a whole if there's not a perfect balance. And what we're letting balance the system today is who's got the most money. If you've got the most money, that must mean you're the most successful. And the system is, you can play that game very well. You might have, however, the greatest innovation, the greatest technology, but you'll have to attract money before you could make use of the IP system today. You won't be able to do it on a $0 budget. And you have industries who team up from other countries, say Japan, to help each other enforce their patent rights internationally to keep the costs manageable. So let's take care of our patent, trademark, and copyright owners. It's not enough, perhaps, just to say, great, you have a right, you've earned it, but level the playing field in a way that money is not the biggest factor that determines success. It's not a bad factor, but maybe we should consider other factors as well.
It's fascinating. It's definitely the first time I've ever heard an answer to this question in that way, and I love it. It's great perspective. It really is something to consider. And like you said, it's an important factor, but it shouldn't be potentially the only factor that we're considering in this country. All right, next question. What is a piece of practical advice for our listeners? These are leaders and future leaders in law who are looking to follow your lead.
Do not get lost in the business of law. Let others worry about that. It can be easy to think about growing your legal practice and looking at the bottom line numbers and seeing the dollars involved. That will happen organically if you pursue continued progress as a legal professional. So don't neglect the time to do the work. And I see a lot of young lawyers coming up and they're just ready to build their book of business, but there's no way around getting experience to see as much as you can. It's very hard to skip that process. And your experience is what determines a major aspect of the quality of the advice you serve your clients with.
It's really interesting because there's been such an emphasis on the business of law because the business of law was so lacking. So I think it's really interesting to hear, but don't forget the actual practice itself. What is like just a small piece of advice that you could give to someone on how they could ensure that they're not focusing so deeply on the business of law while still ensuring that they're creating a livelihood?
Very simple. It's something I ask all of my colleagues as well. What is the most intricate service you could provide as a lawyer for your client? And that should be changing every year to 2 years to 3 years. You should keep advancing, adding, refining. If you're focused on getting as many trademark filings done as an attorney and not focused on, let's say, going through as many appeals, re-exam, or even taking a case up the circuit, trying to find that legal work that is very specialized and keep advancing that process, I think that you'll plateau really fast. So keep advancing the sophistication you're capable of serving yourself to your client.
Excellent advice. And last question, what do you do for self-care?
Try to listen to what my wife tells me to do. She says I tend to torture myself staying up late at night. So what I'd like to improve on in my self-care is a sleep regimen with the discipline that my wife has.
She sounds like a really wise woman. Sleep is important for sure. Well, I want to thank you so much, Yuri, for being here today. If someone wanted to connect with you, what is the best way that they can do so?
Yuri at founderslegal.com. And you can find us at founderslegal.com. Add me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Yuri, for being here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, leaders and future leaders, for listening today. We have a new guest every week, so don't forget to join us next week. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe or follow us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also follow @LawyersWhoLead on social. Let's celebrate and continue to build a community of leaders in law together. Lawyers Who Lead is made possible by Lawline, the leading online platform for lawyers who want engaging, relevant CLE and professional growth content. For over 20 years, Lawline has helped hundreds of thousands of attorneys level up by providing award-winning courses in hard-to-find areas and high-demand fields. They have so many courses to choose from that are actually really interesting to listen to and watch. That's why Lawline's rated the highest in the industry with over 1,000 verified reviews on Trustpilot. Lawyers Who Lead listeners get $100 off Lawline's unlimited annual subscription, which means you can take as many courses as you want for a really good price. Just visit lawline.com/podcast to get the special offer. Check out Lawline for the best content for leaders and future leaders in legal.